The basement smelled of damp earth and decay, a sour tang that clung to the back of my throat. I sat on the sagging cot, its springs groaning under my weight, and listened to the skittering of tiny claws across the concrete floor. Rats. Dozens of them, their beady eyes catching the faint glow of the single bulb dangling above. I didn't flinch. At 72, I'd seen worse than rats, far worse. But the ache in my chest wasn't from the cold or the stench. It was from her. My daughter. Clara. Clara, with her sharp tongue and sharper eyes, had sent me here. "You're a burden, Dad," she'd said, her voice slicing through the air of our old family home. "You can't stay upstairs anymore. The basement's fine for you." She didn't know that the man she banished to this rotting hole was worth billions. I'd hidden it well, and for good reason. Money changes people. It had changed her mother, and I feared it had changed her too. I leaned back against the damp wall, my fingers tracing the edge of a worn photograph in my pocket. It was of Clara at 5, her gap-toothed smile bright as she clutched my hand at the county fair. That was before the world hardened her, before her mother's betrayal, before the years of resentment piled up like the dust in this basement. I'd kept my wealth a secret to protect her, to give her a life untainted by greed. But now, as the rats gnawed at the edges of my solitude, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. The story of how I became a billionaire wasn't one of luck or brilliance, but of quiet, relentless work. Decades ago, I'd started with a single hardware store, a crumbling shack in a forgotten corner of Chicago. I poured my soul into ivory late night, every calloused hand, every deal struck in the dim light of dawn. By the time Clara was born, that shack had grown into a chain, then an empire. But I never told her. I never told anyone. To the world, I was just Henry Voss, the widower who lived modestly, drove a beat-up Chevy, and wore flannel shirts from thrift stores. My fortune sat in offshore accounts, trusts, and investments, untouched, waiting for a purpose I hadn't yet found. Clara's footsteps echoed above, heavy and deliberate. She was pacing, probably on the phone with her husband, Greg. I could hear the muffled cadence of her voice, sharp and impatient. Greg was a decent man, but weak, always bending to Clara's will. I didn't blame him. Clara had a fire in her, the kind that could warm a room or burn it down. Lately, it only burned. I closed my eyes, the photograph still in my hand, and let my mind drift to the day it all began to unravel. It was 2 years ago, when Clara's business, a boutique bakery she'd poured her heart into, failed. She'd come to me, eyes red from crying, asking for a loan. I wanted to give her everything, to hand her the keys to my fortune and watch her soar. But I'd seen what money did to her mother, how it twisted love into something transactional. So I gave her what I could, a few $1,000s, scraped together from my savings. She took it, but her eyes held a new kind of resentment. "You never really cared," she'd said. That was the first crack in the foundation of our bond. The rats scurried closer, emboldened by the stillness. One brushed against my shoe, and I nudged it away gently. I wasn't afraid of them. They were just creatures, surviving in a world that didn't want them. Like me, in a way. I'd built my empire to give Clara a better life. But all she saw was a father who couldn't help her when she needed it most. Above, the floorboards creaked again. Clara was coming down. The door at the top of the stairs groaned open, and her silhouette appeared, backlit by the warm glow of the house I'd bought for her. "Dad," she called, her voice flat. "You need anything?" I wanted to laugh. Need anything? I needed her to see me, to remember the man who'd carried her on his shoulders, who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd stayed up all night when she had a fever. But I said nothing. Silence was safer. "I'm fine," I replied, my voice steady despite the ache. She hesitated, then shut the door. The darkness swallowed me again. That night, I didn't sleep. The rats kept their distance, as if sensing my restlessness. I thought about Clara's childhood, how she'd been my shadow, trailing me through the hardware store, asking 100 questions about nails and paint. I thought about her mother, Ellen, who'd left us when Clara was 10, chasing a richer man who promised her the world. I'd vowed then to shield Clara from that kind of hunger. But maybe I'd shielded her too well. Maybe I'd robbed her of the chance to fight for something real. By morning, my resolve hardened. I couldn't stay in this basement forever, a prisoner of my own secrets. But revealing my wealth now would only widen the chasm between us. Clara needed to understand me, not my money. And I needed to understand her, why she'd grown so cold, why she'd banished me here. There was a story beneath her anger, one I hadn't yet uncovered. I stood, my joints protesting, and shuffled to the small desk in the corner. It held a single notebook, a gift from Clara years ago, its pages still blank. I opened it, took a pen, and began to write. Not about my billions, but about the moments we'd lost, the ones I hoped we could reclaim. This notebook would be my bridge to her, a way to tell her the truth without the weight of money crushing it. As I wrote, the rats watched, their eyes glinting like tiny stars in the dark. I didn't mind them anymore. They were my companions now, witnesses to a story that was far from over. The notebook became my sanctuary. Each morning, after Clara's footsteps faded upstairs, I wrote. The words flowed like a river I'd dammed up for years, memories of her laughter, her tiny hand in mine, the way she'd look at me like I was her whole world. But I also wrote about the pain, the distance that had grown between us like weeds in an untended garden. The rats, ever present, seemed to listen. They're scratching a quiet rhythm to my thoughts. Clara came down once a day, always at noon, with a tray of food, usually a sandwich, an apple, and a glass of water. She never stayed long. "You okay, Dad?" she'd ask, her eyes avoiding mine. I'd nod, and she'd leave, the door clicking shut like a verdict. I wondered what she saw when she looked at me, a frail old man, a burden, a shadow of the father she'd once adored. I wanted to tell her everything about the billions, about the empire I'd built for her, but the words stayed locked in my chest. Not yet. One afternoon, as the bulb flickered above, I heard voices upstairs. Clara's, sharp and clipped, and Greg's, softer, pleading. "We can't keep him down there forever," Greg said. "It's not right." Clara's response was a hiss. "He's fine. He doesn't need much." My heart sank. I'd always thought Clara's anger was a storm that would pass, but now I saw it was deeper, rooted in something I didn't understand. I turned back to my notebook, writing about the day Clara turned 16. She'd wanted a car. Nothing fancy, just something to call her own. I'd given her my old Chevy, cleaned up and repainted, but her face had fallen. "You couldn't even get me something new," she'd said, her voice dripping with disappointment. I wanted to explain that the Chevy was a symbol of my love, of the life I'd chosen to keep simple for her sake. But she'd driven off, leaving me with the sting of her words. The basement door creaked open, startling me. It wasn't noon. Clara stood there, her face pale, her arms crossed tightly. "Dad, we need to talk," she said. Her voice was different, less cold, more uncertain. I set the notebook down, my heart pounding. "What's wrong?" I asked. She hesitated, then descended the stairs, her steps slow. Greg's been talking to a realtor, she said, sitting on the edge of the cot. He thinks we should sell the house. Move somewhere smaller. We can't afford this place anymore. I studied her face, searching for the girl I'd raised. Her eyes were tired, lined with worry. For the first time in years, I saw vulnerability, not anger. Clara, I said softly, why didn't you tell me things were this bad? She laughed, a bitter sound. Tell you? You've got nothing. Dad, you've always had nothing. How could you help? Her words cut deeper than the damp or the rats. I wanted to tell her the truth. To say, I could buy this house 1,000 times over. But instead, I reached for her hand. She pulled away, but not before I felt the tremble in her fingers. I'm your father, I said. I'll always find a way. She stood abruptly, shaking her head. You don't get it, do you? You can't fix this. You can't fix anything. She stormed upstairs, the door slamming behind her. I sat in the silence, the rats resuming their restless dance. Clara's words echoed in my mind, each one a brick in the wall between us. But her vulnerability had cracked that wall, just a little. She was hurting, and I'd been too blind to see it. My wealth could save her house, her pride, her future, but it wouldn't heal her heart. I needed to understand her pain, to bridge the gap before it was too late. That night, I wrote again, this time about her mother's departure. Ellen had left us for a man who flaunted his wealth, a man who promised her a life I couldn't or wouldn't give her. Clara had been 10, old enough to feel the betrayal, but too young to understand it. I tried to be both parents, to fill the void, but maybe I'd failed. Maybe Clara's anger wasn't just about might, was about a world that had let her down. The next morning, I heard a new sound upstairs, laughter. It was Clara, but softer, lighter than I'd heard in years. I crept to the foot of the stairs, listening. She was talking to some Ania child. I realized. My granddaughter, Lily. Clara had kept Lily away from me, saying the basement wasn't safe for a 6-year-old. But now, Lily's voice was clear, giggling about a drawing she'd made. Can Grandpa see it? She asked. Clara's response was sharp. Grandpa's busy. Sweetie. I leaned against the wall, my chest tight. Lily was the one piece of Clara I hadn't lost, the one light in this darkness. I vowed then to find a way back to them both, not with money, but with truth, with love, with the story I was writing in that notebook. The days blurred together, marked only by the rhythm of Clara's footsteps and the scratch of my pen. The notebook was filling up, each page a step toward understanding the fracture between us. I wrote about the small moments, Clara's first school play, the time we built a treehouse, the nights we'd stayed up talking about her dreams. But I also wrote about the failures, the times I'd chosen silence over honesty, thinking it would protect her. The rats, ever watchful, seemed to approve, their presence less intrusive now, almost comforting. Clara's visits grew less predictable. Sometimes she'd come down twice in a day, other times not at all. When she did, her eyes lingered on me longer, as if searching for something she couldn't name. I wondered if she sensed the weight of my secrets, the truth I was building in the notebook. But I wasn't ready to show her, not yet. The story needed to be complete, a full accounting of who I was, who we were. One evening, as the bulb cast long shadows across the basement, I heard a new voice upstairs. It was Greg, but he wasn't alone. A man's voice, smooth and polished, cut through the floorboards. Clara, we can get you out of this mess, he said. The house is a gold mine. Sell it, and you're free. I froze, my pen hovering over the page. A realtor. They were serious about selling. I strained to hear Clara's response, but it was muffled, drowned out by Lily's laughter. My granddaughter's voice was a balm, but it couldn't erase the dread creeping into my chest. This house wasn't just a building, it was our history. The place where Clara had grown up, where I'd raised her alone after Ellen left. Losing it would be like losing her all over again. I wrote furiously that night, recounting the day we moved into this house. Clara was 8, her eyes wide with wonder as she ran through the empty rooms, claiming the attic as her secret hideout. I'd spent every penny I had and some I didn't to buy this place. Not because of my wealth, but because I wanted her to have a home, a sanctuary. Now, it was slipping away, and I was trapped in its underbelly, powerless to stop it. The next morning, Clara came down earlier than usual, her face drawn. She set the tray on the desk, her movements jerky. "Dad," she said, her voice low, "the realtor says we can get a good price. Enough to start over. Greg thinks it's the only way." I looked at her, searching for the girl who'd once believed in me. "This house means something, Clara. To you. To Lily. Don't let it go so easily." Her eyes flashed. "What do you know about it? You've never had to worry about money, about keeping a roof over your head. You just exist." She gestured at the basement, at the rats darting into the shadows. "This is all you've got." Her words were a knife, but I held her gaze. "You're wrong," I said quietly. "I know more about loss than you think." She opened her mouth, then closed it, her hands clenching into fists. For a moment, I thought she'd say more, but she turned and left, the door slamming behind her. The rats scattered, startled by the sound. I sat there, my heart heavy, and picked up the notebook. I wrote about the day Ellen left, how Clara had cried herself to sleep for weeks, how I'd promised her we'd be okay. I hadn't lied then, but I hadn't told her the whole truth either. That afternoon, Lily's voice broke through my thoughts. She was at the top of the stairs, her small voice calling, "Grandpa, are you there?" My heart leapt. I stood, ignoring the ache in my knees, and moved to the base of the stairs. "I'm here, sweetheart," I called back. Clara's voice cut in, sharp. "Lily, I told you, Grandpa's busy." But I made him a picture. Lily protested. I could imagine her clutching a piece of paper, her eyes bright with pride. I wanted to see her, to hold her, to tell her I loved her. But the door stayed closed. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't keep hiding, not from Clara, not from Lily. The notebook was nearly full, but it wasn't enough. I needed to act, to show Clara who I was, not just through words, but through something real. I thought of the house, of the realtor's smooth promises. I could save it. I could save us. But it would mean revealing everything, risking the fragile trust we had left. I tore a page from the notebook and wrote a letter not to Clara, but to Lily. "My dearest Lily," it began, "your grandpa has a story to tell, one that's bigger than this basement. Someday, you'll understand." I folded it carefully, tucking it into my pocket. It was a small step, but it felt like a leap. The rats watched, their eyes glinting in the dark, as if they knew something was coming. And maybe they did. The basement felt smaller each day, as if the walls were closing in, mirroring the shrinking space between me and Clara. The notebook was my lifeline, its pages now thick with memories and confessions. I wrote about the years after Ellen left, how I'd balanced raising Clara with building my empire in secret. I'd worked nights, weekends, holidays, all while keeping up the facade of a simple hardware store owner. Every dollar I earned was for Clara, for her future, but I'd never found the right moment to tell her. Clara's visits grew erratic. Some days, she'd linger, her eyes flickering to the notebook as if sensing its weight. Others, she'd drop the tray and leave without a word. I could feel her turmoil, the battle between her anger and something softer, something I hoped was love. But hope was a fragile thing in this basement, easily drowned out by the skittering of rats. One morning, I heard a new sound, a truck rumbling outside, then the sharp voices of movers. My stomach twisted. Were they already packing up the house? I crept to the small, grimy window near the ceiling, peering out at the street. A moving van was parked in the driveway. Two men unloading boxes labeled kitchen and bedroom. Clara was upstairs, her voice tense as she directed them. Not that one, she snapped. That stays. I sank back onto the cot, my mind racing. She was serious about selling. The house, our home, was slipping away, and I was still trapped here, a secret billionaire surrounded by rats. I opened the notebook, my hands trembling, and wrote about the day Clara graduated high school. She'd been valedictorian, her speech full of fire and promise. I'd sat in the audience, my heart swelling, knowing I could give her the world but choosing not to. I'd wanted her to earn it, to find her own way. Now, I wondered if that choice had cost us everything. The door creaked open, and Clara appeared, her face flushed. "Dad, I need you to stay down here today," she said. Her voice clipped. "The movers are working, and it's easier if you're out of the way." Out of the way, I repeated, the words bitter on my tongue. "Clara, this is our home. You don't have to do this." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't get to tell me what to do. Not anymore. You've never understood what it's like to struggle, to have nothing." I wanted to scream the truth, to tell her about the billions sitting in accounts she'd never seen. But instead, I said, "I understand more than you know. Let me help you. Clara, please." She stared at me, her expression unreadable, then turned and left. The door's slam echoed in my chest. I sat there, the notebook open in my lap, and wrote about the day her bakery opened. She'd been so proud, her apron dusted with flour, her smile brighter than the sun. I'd given her a small loan, all I could afford without revealing my wealth. When the bakery failed, she'd blamed me, as if my refusal to give more was a refusal to love her. That afternoon, Lily's voice broke through again. She was closer this time, at the top of the stairs. "Grandpa, I miss you," she called, her voice small but clear. My heart ached. I stood, moving to the base of the stairs, and called back, "I miss you too. Lily, I'm right here." Clara's voice cut in, sharp and final. "Lily, come on. Grandpa's fine." The door shut, and silence fell. I clutched the letter I'd written to Lily, my fingers tracing the edges of the paper. I needed to reach her, to reach them both. But the basement felt like a prison now, not just of concrete and rats, but of my own making. That night, I made a plan. I couldn't reveal my wealth, yet it would shatter what little trust Clara had left. But I could act in secret, the way I'd built my empire. I knew people, lawyers, bankers, old friends who owed me favors. I could save the house without Clara knowing, at least for now. I tore another page from the notebook and wrote a list, names, numbers, steps to take. It was risky, but it was a start. As I wrote, a rat scurried across my foot, bolder than the others. I didn't flinch. I'd lived with them long enough to know they weren't the enemy. The real enemy was the distance between me and my daughter, and I was done letting it grow. The notebook, the letter, The plan, they were my weapons now, and I'd use them to fight for what was left of my family. The basement was no longer just a place, it was a mirror, reflecting every choice I'd made, every secret I'd kept. The rats, once intruders, were now part of the rhythm of my days. They're scratching a counterpoint to the scratch of my pen. The notebook was nearly full, its pages a tapestry of love and regret, woven with memories of Clara and the life we'd lost. But it wasn't enough to write. I needed to act, to bridge the chasm between us before the house and our family was gone for good. The movers came daily now, their voices a constant hum above. Boxes piled up in the driveway, each one a piece of our history carted away. Clara's visits grew shorter, her words curt. "We're almost done," she'd say, avoiding my eyes. I wanted to grab her, to shake her, to tell her I could stop this. But the billions I'd hidden were a wall as real as the one between us. Revealing them now might save the house, but it would break something else: her trust, her belief in me as her father, not a bank. One morning, as the rats dozed in the corners, I pulled out the list I'd made. My old lawyer, Margaret, was first. She'd handled my accounts for decades, keeping my wealth a secret even from her own staff. I needed her to contact the realtor, to make an offer on the house through a shell company, anonymous, untraceable. It was a long shot, but I'd built my empire on long shots. I wrote a letter to Margaret, careful to keep it vague in case Clara found it. "Buy the property at 1427 Maple Lane." I wrote. "Full asking price. Cash. No questions." I folded it, tucking it into my shoe. I'd need to find a way to mail it, but that was a problem for later. Clara came down that afternoon, her face pale, her hands twisting together. "Dad," she said, her voice softer than usual. "The sale's almost final. We're moving next week. You'll come with us. Okay. We'll find a place for you." Her words were a lifeline, thin and frayed. But there, I looked at her, seeing the girl who'd once trusted me completely. "Clara," I said, my voice steady, "this house is your home. It's Lily's home. Don't let it go." Her eyes flashed, but there was no anger, only exhaustion. "You don't understand, Dad. We have no choice. The bank's breathing down our necks, and Greg's job isn't enough. I'm trying to keep us together." I wanted to tell her I could fix it, that I had the power to make everything right. But instead, I reached for the notebook, flipping to a page I'd written about her 10th birthday. "You remember this?" I asked, holding it out. "You wanted a pony, but we got you that little wooden horse instead. You loved it anyway." She stared at the page, her lips trembling. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Why are you making this harder?" "Because I love you," I said simply. "And I'm not giving up on us." She turned away, but not before I saw the tears in her eyes. She left without another word, the door closing softly this time. I sat back, my heart pounding. It was the closest we'd come to a real conversation in years. I wrote about it in the notebook, capturing every detail: her trembling voice, the flicker of pain in her eyes. It was a crack in her armor, and I'd find a way to widen it. That evening, I heard Lily again, her voice muffled but insistent. "I want to see Grandpa," she said, her words followed by the sound of small feet on the stairs. My heart leapt, but Clara's voice stopped her. "Not now, Lily. Grandpa's resting." I stood, moving to the base of the stairs. "I'm not resting," I called, loud enough for them to hear. "Lily, come down if you want." There was a pause. Then Clara's voice, sharp but uncertain. "Dad, don't." Let her see me. Clara, I said, my voice firm. She's my granddaughter. The door opened, and Lily's small face appeared, her eyes wide with excitement. She ran down the stairs, a piece of paper clutched in her hand. Grandpa, she cried, throwing her arms around me. I held her tight, the warmth of her small body chasing away the basement's chill. Clara stood at the top of the stairs, watching us. For a moment, I thought I saw something soften in her face. Then she turned away, leaving the door open. Lily showed me her drawing a stick figure of me, smiling, surrounded by hearts. I tucked it into the notebook, next to the letter for her. The rats watched, silent, as if they knew this was a turning point. Lily's visit changed everything. Her small arms around my neck, her drawing tucked into the notebook, they were a reminder of what I was fighting for. The basement, the rats, the damp walls, they didn't matter. What mattered was my family, and I was running out of time to save it. The movers were relentless now, their footsteps a constant drumbeat above, stripping the house of its memories. I had to act, but carefully. Clara wasn't ready for the truth about my wealth, and I wasn't ready to lose her trust by revealing it. I spent the morning writing in the notebook, recounting the day Clara left for college. She'd been so nervous, clutching her acceptance letter like a lifeline. I'd driven her to the dorms in the old Chevy, the same one she'd scorned years later. You'll do great things, I'd told her, and she'd hug me, her eyes shining. That was the last time I'd felt truly close to her. The memory fueled my resolve. I needed to reach that Clara again, the one who believed in me. The letter to Margaret was still in my shoe, a secret plan to save the house. But mailing it was a problem. Clara watched me too closely, and I had no phone, no way to contact the outside world. I considered slipping the letter into one of the moving boxes, hoping it would find its way to a postbox. But the risk was too great. If Clara found it, she'd know I was hiding something. I needed another way. That afternoon, Clara came down with the usual tray, but her movements were slower, her face drawn. Dad, she said, setting the tray on the desk. The sale's final tomorrow. We're moving to an apartment across town. It's not much, but it's what we can afford. I studied her, seeing the weight of her decision. Clara, I said, what's making you do this? The house, the bakery, what's really going on? She stiffened, her eyes narrowing. You wouldn't understand. You've never had to fight for anything. You just gave up after Mom left. Her words stung, but I saw the pain behind them. I fought for you, I said quietly. Every day? You just didn't see it. She laughed, a hollow sound. You fought. By sitting in a hardware store, barely making ends meet. I needed you, Dad. When the bakery failed, when Greg lost his job, he needed you, and you had nothing to give. I wanted to tell her about the billions, about the empire I'd built for her. But instead, I picked up the notebook, flipping to a page about her bakery's opening day. You were so proud, I said, holding it out. I was too. I still am. She stared at the notebook, her hands trembling. Why do you keep writing in that thing? She asked, her voice breaking. What's the point? It's our story, I said. Yours and mine. I'm not done writing it. She turned away, but not before I saw the tears in her eyes. She left the door open, a small gesture that felt like a crack in the wall between us. I sat back, my mind racing. The letter to Margaret was my only chance to save the house, but I needed to get it out of the basement. And I needed Clara to see me, really see me, before it was too late. That evening, Lily slipped downstairs again, her small feet pattering on the steps. "Grandpa, I made you another picture," she said, holding out a drawing of a house with a big heart on it. I hugged her, my throat tight. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said. "Can you do me a favor? Can you take something to the mailbox for Grandpa?" Her eyes widened, like a secret mission. I smiled, pulling the letter from my shoe. "Exactly. But don't tell Mommy. Okay? It's our secret." She nodded, tucking the letter into her pocket. I watched her scamper upstairs, my heart pounding. It was a risk, but Lily was my only hope. The rats watched, their eyes glinting, as if they knew the stakes. That night, I wrote about Lily, her laughter, her trust, her belief in me. She was the bridge between me and Clara, the one who could bring us back together. I just hoped I hadn't sent her on a mission that would unravel everything. The basement felt different after Lily took the letter. It was as if the air had shifted, carrying a faint hope that mingled with the damp and the rats' restless scratching. I didn't know if the letter would reach Margaret, or if my plan to save the house would work. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was doing something. The notebook lay open on the desk, its pages a testament to my love for Clara, my regrets, my resolve. I wrote about Lily's visit, her small hands clutching the letter, her eyes bright with the thrill of our secret mission. Clara's visits stopped the next day. I heard her upstairs, her voice sharp as she spoke to Greg and the movers. But she didn't come down. The silence was heavier than ever, broken only by the rats and the occasional rumble of the moving van. I wondered if she'd found the letter, if Lily had been caught. The thought made my chest tight, but I pushed it away. Lily was careful, and she was my enemy ally in this dark, forgotten place. I wrote about the day Clara came home from college, her arms full of books and dreams. She'd talked about opening a bakery, her voice alive with possibility. I'd listened, my heart swelling, knowing I could fund her dream 1,000 times over, but choosing to let her fight for it. Now, I saw that choice differently. Maybe I'd been wrong to hide my wealth, to let her struggle alone. Maybe my silence had built the wall between us, brick by brick. The door creaked open that afternoon, and Clara appeared, her face pale, her eyes red. She held a piece of paper in her hand, Lily's drawing. I realized, the one with the heart-covered house. "Lily gave me this," she said, her voice trembling. "She said it was for you. She said she mailed something for you. Dad, what's going on?" My heart stopped. Lily hadn't been as careful as I'd hoped. I stood, my knees unsteady, and faced her. "Clara, I can explain," I said, my voice calm despite the storm inside me. "Explain what?" she snapped, stepping closer. "What are you hiding? You're down here, writing in that stupid notebook, sending my daughter on errands. What are you doing?" I took a deep breath, the rats watching from the shadows. "I'm trying to save us," I said. "This house, our family, everything." Her laugh was bitter, but her eyes were wet. "Save us? You can't even save yourself. You're nothing. Dad, you've always been nothing." The words hit like a blow, but I held her gaze. "You're wrong," I said. "I've been more than you know. But I've been a fool, too, keeping it from you. Sit down, Clara. Let me tell you a story." She hesitated, her hands clenching the drawing. Then, slowly, she sat on the cot, her eyes wary. I opened the notebook, my hands trembling, and began to read. I started with her childhood, the moments we'd shared, the love that had defined us. I told her about the hardware store, how it grew into an empire, how I'd hidden it to protect her. I didn't mention the billions, not yet. I wanted her to hear me first, to see the man behind the money. Her face softened as I read, her tears falling silently. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered finally. All those years. When I was struggling, why? I thought I was protecting you. I said. I saw what money did to your mother. I didn't want it to change you. She stood, pacing the small space. You let me think you didn't care. You let me hate you. I know, I said, my voice breaking. And I'm sorry. But I'm here now. Clara, let me help. She shook her head, but she didn't leave. She sat back down, her hands clutching the drawing. And we really talked for the first time in years. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. That night, I wrote about our conversation. Every word. Every tear. The rats watched, their eyes glinting, as if they knew the story was turning. And somewhere, I hoped, my letter was on its way to Margaret, carrying the chance to save our home. The basement felt less like a prison now, as if Clara's tears had washed away some of its weight. Our conversation had cracked the wall between us, but it hadn't fallen. She was still angry, still hurt, and I was still hiding the full truth. The notebook was complete, its pages a map of our lives. But the letter to Margaret was my last hope to save the house. I didn't know if it had reached her, but I clung to the possibility, the way I clung to the memory of Clara's softer voice. The movers were gone now, the house eerily quiet. Clara came down the next morning, her face a mix of resolve and uncertainty. Dad, she said, sitting on the cot. The sale's off. Someone bought the house cash. Full price. The realtor said it's a company, not a person. They're letting us stay. Rent-free. For now. My heart leapt, but I kept my face neutral. Margaret had come through. That's good news, I said carefully. What does it mean for you? She shrugged, her eyes distant. I don't know. It buys us time. But it doesn't fix everything. She looked at me, her voice softer. I read some of your notebook last night. You left it open. I didn't know you felt all that. I swallowed, my throat tight. It's all true, Clara. Every word. She nodded, her fingers tracing the edge of the cot. I'm sorry, Dad, for putting you down here. For everything. The words were a balm, but they didn't erase the years of distance. I'm sorry too, I said. I should have been honest with you. She stood, her eyes meeting mine. Come upstairs, she said. No more basement. I followed her, the rats watching as I left their domain. The house felt different, emptier, but still ours. Lily ran to me, her arms wide, and I held her, my heart full. Clara watched, a small smile breaking through her guarded expression. Over the next few days, we began to rebuild. Clara and I talked more, not just about the past, but about the future. I told her about the hardware store, the empire I'd built, but I still held back the full scope of my wealth. It wasn't time yet. She needed to trust me first, not my money. One evening, as we sat in the living room, Lily asleep on the couch, Clara turned to me. Dad, what's next? We can't stay here forever. Not like this. I took a deep breath, the weight of my secret heavy. Clara, I said, there's something I need to tell you. But first, I want you to know that everything I've done, every choice, every sacrifice was for you. Her eyes searched mine, wary but open. What is it? I told her. Not all at once, but slowly, carefully. The billions, the accounts, The empire I'd hidden. Her face shifted from shock to disbelief to something like awe. Why didn't you say anything? She asked, her voice trembling. Because I wanted you to love me for me, I said. Not for what I could give you. She cried then. And so did I. We sat there, the notebook between us, its pages a bridge we'd finally crossed. The house was safe. Our family was healing. And the rats were just a memory. In the weeks that followed, we made plans. Clara wanted to reopen her bakery, and I promised to help not just with money, but with my time, my love. Lily drew more pictures, each one a reminder of what we'd fought for. The basement stayed empty, its door locked, a relic of a time we'd left behind. I wrote one final entry in the notebook, not for Clara, but for myself. It was a promisito never hide again, to live openly, to love fiercely. The rats had been my companions in the dark, but now I was in the light, with my daughter, my granddaughter, my family. And that was worth more than all the billions in the world.